Hope everybody's doing okay. This is part 11 to the Slaves of Satan series. And before I went in more detail about more people that brought the occult and other forms of esoteric evil popular in America, I wanted to continue on with the topic that was at hand last time with episode 10, which was about Harry Hay. But I wanted to go back a little bit further and talk about the other um main problem, um the same cooperator, or in my opinion he should be called an accomplice, because in my opinion and for many other people's opinion, what he did and what all these people are doing is considered crimes if they were immune for certain reasons. So while Harry Hay, just for recap, someone didn't watch the last episode, Harry Hay was specifically all about gay rights. He's the one who kicked off that movement. So obviously, one man's not responsible for making homosexuality acceptable in America. But if you're trying to point fingers at who got the ball rolling, it's him. But I would say this might be even a bigger problem, and this is about who was responsible for making pornography legal in America, and it's another name that seems to just slip through the cracks when people are talking about the people who caused the moral decay of the country and a very large part of the world. And this is a man named Alfred Kenzie. Now, at one point, this was a very controversial name to speak about. Once word got around of how he got these so-called results and what he was about and who he was, but nowadays you're harder to find anybody that even knows who he even is. But this was an unimaginably evil person. So I pray to God that this video is seen, because out of the 11 in this series, I would say this might be maybe the most important one I've ever done. Before I get started on this person's actual character and his life, people need to understand how dangerous the pornography is. First of all, the addiction rate. Um, Mentally, it's harder to quit a pornography addiction than it is heroin. Obviously, people are going to have their own opinion on that, but what's the problem isn't how hard it is to quit, it's the effects that it has on the mind, body, soul, and spirit, and the fact that it's causing somebody to abuse themselves sexually and fornicate constantly. Not only is the person committing the sin of masturbation, they're committing the sin of lust, and I think it's to be noted in the Bible, even though that this is only recorded once, that towards the end of Genesis, even though this wasn't specifically masturbation, that God struck a man down when he spilled his seed. And what do you do when you masturbate? You spill your seed. In Genesis chapter 38, verse 9. But Onan knew that the heir would not be his, and it came to pass that he went into his brother's wife, that he emitted on the ground, lest he should give an heir to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord. Therefore he killed him also. And you can't use the excuse about being related, because in the early stages of history in the Bible, that happened very frequently, and and God never killed anyone else for that specific reason. Um, but anyways, now you also have to look at the actual statistics and not believe the satanic scientists that are working for the devil and are all on the payroll of Luciferians like the Rockefeller Corporation, who pays for these so-called sex results. The scientists will tell you porn is good for you and that it's good to masturbate. Well, every single major serial killer in the country, and since porn got legalized in 73, because at one point in time when a large amount of the population was not morally corrupt, you would go to prison if you would have a pornographic video in your home. And now someone can da 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 have it up on their phone in 4 seconds. Every single major serial killer has had an addiction to porn. Every single one. I don't know exactly where this link where you can find a link to this, but the first time I saw it is in a documentary called "They Sold Their Souls for Rock and Roll," which is an amazing documentary that covers so many different topics. While still focusing on how the rock music was part of the decay of America, but that for another video. Um, it ruins somebody's future marriage and relationship. Um, because it gives you a false idea of what sex is like. These fornicators on these so-called films or movies, they're edited. A lot of times, what you're seeing isn't even how it is. The men are injecting themselves with drugs to stay erected that long. Um, they're trained on how to move their bodies certain ways. The camera angles are altered. If they do stuff like come too early, they'll re-edit the video, clip it, mix it around. But anyways, it it also makes it so you don't even enjoy the sex that God gives you when you do finally marry, because it's already hijacked your mind, and plus you probably have an idea of the type of look you're hoping to, the type of body and appearance that you have it implanted in your mind of who you plan on sleep with, and obviously that's not what you get when you marry. So that's another thing that completely changes the way sex is supposed to be, because if done completely correct, sex was supposed to be a gift from God if done correct, and that meant no sex before marriage, and it meant refraining from the things that God forbids, even if you are married, which is sodomy, which means no anal sex, no oral sex. And if a man or woman understands the mysteries of fornication and actually studies what qualifies as sodomy, and and what God says will happen to sodomizers, or same thing with the guy if he finds out the fate of the sodomizers, like the whole New Testament and Revelation talks about, and he would rather burn in the lake of fire for a blowjob, then at that point, then you give the people over to their own stupidity. And also, before I get on the topic of this particular man, most people haven't heard of an enchanted website. And an enchanted website is similar to like a charged manuscript, like an evil book or like an evil doll. When you get on these websites, they're charged by magic known as technomancy. And this technomancy is on the website, and I'll talk to people about a subject, and they'll say, um, I enjoy looking at porn. But I feel weird afterwards. My energy sucked away, but it doesn't feel like that when I have sex. Or they say I feel horrible after watching it. I feel sick on my stomach, but yet they won't when they're doing the same thing when they had sex, or if they had manual sex with a girl, but they had manual sex with themselves during porn. They'll feel fine when they did it with their wife, or usually feel good, but feel horrible when they did it from the website, and that's because these websites um are demonic, occult code in the code. They've learned how to put sigils, runes, the Enochian keys, any of the any of the demonic magic systems are used in these websites, or um uh, same things with just random websites. I forget the actual term, but it's basically clickbait to get you on an insanity website to basically put you in a vulnerable state of mind. And also, um, most female porn stars do not even see 35. A lot of them don't even see 30. And you can't just keep saying it's a coincidence after about 82, 92, about close to 50, about, yeah, about almost 50 years of porn being legal. And you can't be saying it's a coincidence anymore. They either get killed from stalkers, they take themselves out by suicide, or they overdose. But I think it might possibly be God's own way of judging these people, because if you read the Bible front to back, you'll notice that the main sin is always to do with sex. But anyways, now that I'm done with my I have a lot more to say, but I need to get on with who this person is. So Alfred Kenzie, um, and one thing that he has in common with all of the people that I'll be talking about that from the late 1800s and later, they all either met or was a disciple or had an obsession with Aleister Crowley, because that's the other than Satan, that's the key to all of this debauchery. He basically went on a mission in his life. Um, uh, he was obsessed with finding Aleister Crowley's personal sex diaries. Um, and I don't think he ever found them. I think he was settled for his disgusting um what people would call poetry, which I mentioned before, and don't even need to get into that again. And there's photo evidence of him at the Abbey of Thelema in Sicily, which was the abbey that he used before he got exiled from Sicily. And there's a photo, and no, for any young person watching this, this is not AI. This photo's been around for since they had black and white film. He is at the Abbey of Sicily, staring at a picture of Aleister Crowley on the wall, and he also happens to be with another person that has something to do with this gay agenda that I'll be doing a whole video on later at a different time, named Kenneth Anger. If people don't know who he was he had he played a part in this so-called sexual revolution, but he was mostly known for an occult filmmaker and made very evil movies known as specifically Lucifer Rising, and that's actually the origin of the so-called pride flag that the Satanists hijacked from what was supposed to be a promise from God. When you turn on Lucifer Rising, you'll see whoever's playing in it with a bomber jacket with a rainbow banner on. This is Lucifer above it, and him and him and Alfred Kenzie and Kenneth Anger were very close. They went to and that's who he is. That's who he's with in this picture when they went to the Abbey of Thelema for so-called inspiration, and I would think the rumors about them being a couple was true because they were both bisexual or gay. I think Kenneth Anger might have been fully gay or mostly gay, but he'll be getting his own hit piece. Don't worry. Um, and this guy was also a zoologist. Let's praise or speak to himself. Studied animals, probably because he wanted to screw them too. Um, uh, he was a entomologist, which are people that don't know. It's entomologist is a study on insects. He probably wanted to screw them too. Um, and also he was a biologist, probably because he was obsessed with genitals. Um, and some people might say that I'm not giving this guy any benefit of the doubt, but this was a very sick man. If anybody, before I go any further, if anybody has doubt about how sick of a man this was, there is a documentary. Thankfully, there is a few people that want to get messages similar to this out, and you can buy it on goodfightministry.com, which I highly recommend. Their videos close to everyone I agree with. But you can also find it online. But if you have the money, I would say support a good cause. Unfortunately, I'm very poor and not able to do that. But there is a documentary called the Kenzie syndrome, and this is about I think it's like 2 hours and 25 minutes. It's a complete breakdown of how sick this guy was, and I'm usually not someone that is really easily disturbed at all because of pretty much my life's research. I've seen and read, heard pretty much every sick thing someone can imagine. Because my goal after all these years of research is to bring all this to the light using the true light of Jesus Christ, not the false light of Lucifer. Um, but this thing just made me so disturbed. I pretty much threw up with 40 minutes, and I remember I just kept going to the bathroom and just like kept dry heaving because it just was for some reason it just disturbed me so bad. Now let's talk about how he got porn legalized. So he he started going around, and it needs to be mentioned the Rockefeller Corporation is who mostly funded this man, and most people that are into research this time of know that they're one of the top 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati. But anyways, he went around and started doing surveys about people's kinks, people's sexuality, what they like to do in bed, what age they started doing stuff at. Which I'm not really against doing a survey if it's actually done legit, enough people to be accurate, a wide demographic. But to get what he wanted done, he faked the results, and he made unbelievable claims like over half the men on Earth are homosexual or at least are bi, or made all these horrible claims such as a baby can have an orgasm. It's to be okay to have sex with a baby because they enjoy it. Said that little kids like 3, 4, 5 is fine to have sex with because he could prove that they enjoy it. Unbelievably horrible stuff. If you want to hear more about that in detail, like I said, the Kenzie syndrome, because I don't even really feel comfortable talking about how demented and sick some of this stuff that he said was, and but this is how he got these sick results. Okay, so now if you went and actually did a blind research, then you would get the true results, which the The surveys are also falsified today. Like I know surveys that'll say 10% of American males are bisexual, when the truth is it's barely even 1%. They're falsifying it or just straight up lying today, which is even easier to do with the computer. But anyways, what this disgusting man did to get these fake results, he went into prisons and jails, and he exclusively, pretty much only, interviewed male and female prisoners in different jails across the nation, that were in there for sexual crimes. Specifically, he wanted to interview um uh, pedophiles and child rapists. So or necrophiliacs, people in there for bestiality, anything disgusting. So when you interview the most disgusting people around, of course you're gonna get these unbelievable statistics. When you because you're interviewing the people that's in prison because they were into this disgusting stuff. So I guess because either they just took his word for it, or the people funding him just wanted the results to be true. Later, after he died, his research is what made porn legal in 1973 and no longer was a crime. Um, but the two books that was put out that really caused a lot of rift and controversy and talk at this time, and unfortunately it came out right around the 60s, the counterculture era, where everything was starting to change and the Crowleyan influence was hitting America through all the satanic rock groups. These two books came out. It was The Sexuality of the Human Male and The Sexuality of the Human Female. They were also just known as the Kenzie Reports, because the Kenzie Reports is the umbrella term for the male and female one. So I would just recommend calling it that. Now, beyond this man being just a very sick, disgusting individual, this is actually the first person in this series that I haven't done a video on that I could find absolutely no information, no proof, or no evidence that he was a Freemason. But because I don't do research like other people do and just stop when Google says no, I think outside the box, and think about what fraternities he was in, because most of these people go to a college, and most people that become successful in any field, rather no matter what kind of work it is, rather morally good or not, they usually join a fraternity or a sorority. Because, like, for example, I believe it's 3% of Americans ever join a sorority or a fraternity, but over 70% of people working in the government was in a fraternity, a sorority or fraternity. So that tells you right there that even if it's only a college one, you got pulled. But the specific one he was in was Zeta Psi, and Zeta Psi is one of the largest and most prestigious ones. And I'll pull up the symbol for it right there, and you can see it by looking at it. If you know what a lot of these symbols mean, it's it's full of occult satanic symbols. If you're someone that knows what to look for with this stuff, um, and the creator of Zeta Psi, John Y.B. Summers, this is public information. John Y.B. Summers was a devout Freemason. So anybody that's linked to Zeta Psi, um, and there's plenty of other large college fraternities that are linked with the Masons or Rosicrucians or other of the major secret societies. So he still had. So even though he was not a Mason, he still had the influences of Masonry from Zeta Psi, and anyone in Zeta Psi, I would say, to get out or don't join if you happen to be going to college, which I would not recommend either if you're watching this video, because see, like a lot of these for sororities and fraternities, they're based off of the false Roman or Greek or Norse or Egyptian pantheon of false gods, and people join without even thinking about this. Like they don't think of why they always have Greek names. They just join because they know that their associates or friends are in it, and it'll give them benefits. But in this world, to get ahead, you you have to give something over to the dragon. You can't get ahead in the worldly system naturally. Now, I'm not saying God will never bless anybody financially, but He will not do it through the means of the societies from the dragon. And and he was also this guy was also he also turned atheist when he got older. So so this is why this is let me just do one more quick breakdown of the man who is responsible for making porn legal. Atheist, obsessed with Aleister Crowley. His life mission was to find his sex diaries, into bestiality, into babies, into little boys, into little girls, into sodomy, into homosexuality, had an interest in the occult and Satanism, even though he claimed to be an atheist, which might not even be the actual truth. Falsified research, so that's why all the research now that people think people are actually like that, more people are like that when they're not. It all goes back to him, which all goes back to Crowley, which goes back to the devil, and because of this man's work, countless of people are having their lives ruined by the stronghold of pornography. And if you need any more questions or inspiration or help to break free from all that horrible curse, comment below, and I will reach out, and I will offer to help you. Have a good rest of the night.